I define a good person as somebody who is fully conscious of their own limitations. They know their strengths, but they also know their shadow, they know their weaknesses. In other words, they understand that there is no good without bad. Good and evil are really one, but we have broken them up in our consciousness. We polarize them. I think we have a duty to maintain the light of consciousness to make sure it continues into the future. The essential elements of giving are power and love, activity and affection, and the consciousness of the race testifies that in the high and appropriate exercise of these is a blessedness greater than any other. Happiness is a matter of one's most ordinary and everyday mode of consciousness being busy and lively and unconcerned with self. I hope it is true that a man can die and yet not only live in others but give them life, and not only life, but that great consciousness of life. Poetry is the lifeblood of rebellion, revolution, and the raising of consciousness. The history of all countries shows that the working class exclusively by its own effort is able to develop only trade union consciousness. The magic flute, I think, is fundamentally asking what is it to change people's consciousness. You develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. From out there on the moon, international politics looks so petty. Meditation is the dissolution of thoughts in eternal awareness or pure consciousness without objectification, knowing without thinking, merging finitude in infinity. Because our entire universe is made up of consciousness, we never really experience the universe directly, we just experience our consciousness of the universe, our perception of it, so right. Our only universe is perception. Where you are in consciousness has everything to do with what you see and experience. The sea, this truth must be confessed, has no generosity, no display of manly qualities, courage, hardihood, endurance, faithfulness, has ever been known to touch its irresponsible consciousness of power. Great amount of scientific research is there to show that health is better because transcendental meditation deals with consciousness, and consciousness is the basic value of all the physical expressions. The entire creation is the expression of consciousness. Most Christian believers tend to echo the cultural prejudices and worldviews of the dominant group in their country, with only a minority revealing any real transformation of attitudes or consciousness. It has been true of slavery and racism, classism and consumerism and issues of immigration and health care for the poor. Happiness is that state of consciousness which proceeds from the achievement of one's values. I need one of those baby monitors from my subconscious to my consciousness so I can know what the hell I'm really thinking about. Yoga is the settling of the mind into silence. When the mind has settled, we are established in our essential nature, which is unbounded consciousness. Our essential nature is usually overshadowed by the activity of the mind. Conflict is the beginning of consciousness. Everything we do is for the purpose of altering consciousness. We form friendships so that we can feel certain emotions, like love, and avoid others, like loneliness. We eat specific foods to enjoy their fleeting presence on our tongues. We read for the pleasure of thinking another person's thoughts. As we grow in our consciousness, there will be more compassion and more love, and then the barriers between people, between religions, between nations will begin to fall. Yes, we have to beat down the separateness. The artist's role is to raise the consciousness of the people, to make them understand life, the world and themselves more completely. That's how I see it. Otherwise, I don't know why you do it. It is the state which educates its citizens in civic virtue, gives them a consciousness of their mission and welds them into unity. Consciousness is much more than the thorn, it is the dagger in the flesh. I think the brain is essentially a computer and consciousness is like a computer program. It will cease to run when the computer is turned off. Theoretically, it could be recreated on a neural network, but that would be very difficult, as it would require all one's memories. Remorse sleeps during prosperity but awakes bitter consciousness during adversity. I would argue that nothing gives life more purpose than the realization that every moment of consciousness is a precious and fragile gift. Necessity is blind until it becomes conscious. Freedom is the consciousness of necessity. Life is not a series of gig lamps symmetrically arranged, life is a luminous halo, a semi-transparent envelope surrounding us from the beginning of consciousness to the end. When we quit thinking primarily about ourselves and our own self-preservation, we undergo a truly heroic transformation of consciousness. The real is ever present, like the screen on which the cinematographic pictures move. While the picture appears on it, the screen remains invisible. Stop the picture, and the screen will become clear. All thoughts and events are merely pictures moving on the screen of pure consciousness, which alone is real. I truly believe the intention of creating positive change is so important to the collective consciousness. When you have a group of people that have the intention and the capacity, talent, and intelligence to actualize those intentions, then you have something really powerful. Museums are managers of consciousness. They give us an interpretation of history, of how to view the world and locate ourselves in it. They are, if you want to put it in positive terms, great educational institutions. If you want to put it in negative terms, they are propaganda machines. Do not look for approval except for the consciousness of doing your best. A radical inner transformation and rise to a new level of consciousness might be the only real hope we have in the current global crisis brought on by the dominance of the Western mechanistic paradigm. If you put yourself in a position where you have to stretch outside your comfort zone, then you are forced to expand your consciousness. Our greatest human adventure is the evolution of consciousness. We are in this life to enlarge the soul, liberate the spirit, and light up the brain. Through consciousness, our minds have the power to change our planet and ourselves. It is time we heed the wisdom of the ancient indigenous people and channel our consciousness and spirit to tend the garden and not destroy it. We fear death so profoundly, not because it means the end of our body, but because it means the end of our consciousness. Better to be a spirit in heaven than a zombie on earth. As the ego cogito, subjectivity is the consciousness that represents something, relates this representation back to itself, and so gathers with itself. There is nothing holier in this life of ours than the first consciousness of love, the first fluttering of its silken wings. Our normal waking consciousness, rational consciousness as we call it, is but one special type of consciousness, whilst all about it, parted from it by the filmiest of screens, there lie potential forms of consciousness entirely different. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? Do you see the real you, or what you have been conditioned to believe is you? The two are so different. One is an infinite consciousness capable of being and creating whatever it chooses, the other is an illusion imprisoned by its own perceived and programmed limitations. It's after dark that I feel most inspired. I'm a nocturnal creature. I'll write poetry or streams of consciousness, play instruments, or teach myself to DJ by doing a silent solo set. Anger is like a storm rising up from the bottom of your consciousness. When you feel it coming, turn your focus to your breath. To begin with, we put the proposition, pure phenomenology is the science of pure consciousness. Grace is not part of consciousness, it is the amount of light in our souls, not knowledge nor reason. In the consciousness of the truth he has perceived, man now sees everywhere only the awfulness or the absurdity of existence, and loathing seizes him. The mortal mind alone cannot devise an answer to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because the true answer lies on a level of consciousness that's beyond our mortal thinking. Quite simply, when it comes to Israel and the Palestinians, we need a miracle. Experience is never limited, and it is never complete. It is an immense sensibility, a kind of huge spider web of the finest silken threads suspended in the chamber of consciousness, and catching every airborne particle in its tissue. Visit our website for more quotes, quoting.com.